What's up, War Report family? Your boy C-Dub here. And with 3 games left in the football season, is it time for us to see what Walker White can do? We discussed that, as well as riding high on last night's victory Auburn basketball had against the Houston Cougars. We'll discuss that and more. This is the Weekend Tailgate.
This is the Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub. Mike Joe. Be Will. Mike G. You are now listening to
Weekend Tailgate. You guys already know the deal. Join as a member. Lots of exciting things happening on the Plains, Ceasear. Auburn beat Houston. We're going to talk about that later, as you mentioned in your cold open. Also, Auburn football has 3 games left to show us what they got. That's going to be an adventure, but you will go on that adventure with you. $5.99 a month help keep the work that we're doing at the War Report going. Want to thank our title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron, for sponsoring this segment. Homegrown here in Columbus, Georgia. GoldensCastIron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights, and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. I've got lifetime products at Golden's Cast Iron, and they're doing great work over there. Not only making products you love, but also in the community. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also want to thank our friends over at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Rogue Shop, whether it's pain, sleep, stress, or anxiety that ails you in life, Rogue Shop has you covered. Please go visit them. Again, rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order.
Mike G, Auburn resumes football this upcoming weekend. It's a morning kickoff, close to noon, 11:45 kickoff. Auburn will face off against Louisiana Monroe, who actually dropped a game yesterday to Texas State, 38-17. Both teams will be coming off of a loss. Many people expect Auburn to win this game. Obviously, if you're a Debbie Downer at this point, you have your doubts. But what should we expect in terms of changes? Will there be any changes in terms of roster, in terms of guys playing? Hugh Freeze made some comments. There were some reports about some things Hugh Freeze mentioned last week. What do you know about what Auburn tends to do this upcoming week?
Look, we're not that down. We're not going to lose to ULM type of down.
I just said some people.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's bad, but I don't think it's that bad. But look, there's speculation that quarterback changes might be coming this week. Now, Auburn had their second bye week of the season this past weekend, so Tigers were not in action. They could not lose a game, but they tried to win the bye week by sorting out what to do on offense. Now, a lot of people felt like against last week, they got away from what made them successful against Kentucky, and they lost another game that they should have won. And it's really that simple. Look, man, Vanderbilt was beatable. Vanderbilt was beatable.
I agree with that.
That was a beatable team. I mean, we just saw them lose again this weekend. They should have. Yeah, they should have won. The Auburn should have won that game. Statistically, this team has moved forward. We keep saying that week after week. They're better statistically this year than they were last year, but the end result has not improved in terms of wins and losses. So where did they go from here? Well, I think that the signal caller is limiting this offense. It's clear to me that in the way they're calling the game, they're trying to protect the quarterback by not making passes over the middle. And now Hugh Freeze made some comments to the media last week about looking forward to the future of the program, particularly at the quarterback position. Is it time to play Walker White? We've seen teams across college football make this decision, Ceasear. So everybody's doing this. It's, we brought in a high-profile transfer. It didn't work. We had to bench the guy. Where do we go from here? Do we go to the other transfer? Do we go to a freshman that we recruited last year? Or is there somebody on the bench that can get the job done? Quarterback development has not happened since Hugh took over as the head coach at Auburn. And to me, I think that's probably the most disappointing thing of all this, because as media, not only as media, but as a fan, over the years, that's the one thing that we've longed for, is a quarterback. And whenever Auburn has been able to find a quarterback, Auburn has been in contention for championships. But here comes a coach who's, is coming off of Malik Willis being like a third-round draft pick, and we're thinking, all right, like the floor for this position is going to be raised, and it hasn't so far. Now, do you trust this staff to put together a plan for Walker White over the last 3 games that sets him up to be the guy for next year? There's a lot of talk here that Deuce may bail. It's all over social media right now, like that we could lose Deuce. So you might need Walker here. But I think it was naive of people to think that these results on the field weren't going to start to affect this recruiting class at some point. We'll see if Deuce stays in the fold, Ceasear, but I just think they've got to pull it together for these last 3 games.
Well, Mike, help me here, because obviously I think the context around this is you're pivoting towards the future. Early in the season, Auburn made a QB switch. After the Cal game, Hugh made the decision to go with Hank Brown, which is kind of a pivot to the future. This is a young guy who needs some development. That experiment lasted 6 quarters. You beat New Mexico, first half at Arkansas, didn't go the way you planned it to go. In comes Hank goes out, in comes Peyton Thorne, and that's our quarterback up until this very point. If you're making a pivot in looking towards the future, what has changed in terms of your patience for when these kids make mistakes? And Mike, these kids are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. You have to expect that if they do pivot to someone like a Walker White or even a Hank Brown, they're going to throw a pick here and there. They're going to make a bad decision here and there. What causes you this time around to be patient with these kids, or do you make a quick decision and go back to what you're accustomed to?
Yeah, I think this time you have to commit to the decision. If you're going to do it this time, you have to commit to the decision, barring injury or complete disaster. They went away from Hank too quickly. Hank should have gotten all of the Arkansas game to throw as many picks as he was going to throw, so that at the end of that game, you know. Now, Hugh said after that game, he said, I've watched enough football to see where that was going. And I miffed at that comment. But you haven't watched enough football to know where it's going with Peyton? And how is Auburn in a position right now where that's the best you can do?
Right.
I just don't understand. I do understand it. They have to get it right. They have to get this right. And unfortunately, you put yourself in a position this offseason by not going after a portal QB, where you now you're looking at playing your 4th-string guy.
Right. And then I guess what I struggle with there too is there's a pivot back to Peyton, but you're still going to shrink the offense. You might as well do that with someone who has a higher ceiling and larger upside, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, does he, though? Does he have a higher ceiling? What was the evaluation, truly? I don't know that I trust this coach on that just yet, with how poor QB play has been. And I'm leaning towards there's a development issue here, because all these kids can't suck. I had this same energy for the wide receiver room last year, and I told anybody who would listen, no, they may not be the world's best wide receivers, but when you have systemic issues, there are things that follow you. And I don't think the system is helping the kids. We're just getting mad because they're not producing in a system that's not helping them. And then there is no argument they upgraded the talent.
Right.
None. But the end result is not much better, because you have systemic issues. those kids weren't going. If these kids can't save this system, those kids last year definitely weren't going to save it. And what I want to see is Auburn employ a system that elevates kids rather than blames them for not being able to succeed in a faulty situation. Where is the elevation from the coaching standpoint? I think it's happening defensively. It's clearly happening defensively.
Let me ask you this. Early in the year, from reports you were hearing, Walker White was swimming a bit. He was getting acclimated to the speed of the game.
He told me that.
He was not ready, right? Has that changed? Or if you hearing Hugh Freeze makes those comments, what is the likelihood you see Hank get another shot? Like what realistically happens this weekend?
That's really tough, man. Like, I mean, I think Hank's immobility hurts him behind this offensive line. And with the way that they've been calling offense, he's got to be accurate. There's less tolerance for him to go in there and turn the ball over, which is why we saw him get pulled so quickly versus Arkansas down with the other guys, because they feel like those guys can move and Hank cannot. So, there's a version of this offense that they can call with Walker that they may not be able to call with Hank. And I think that can't be understated. But at the end of the day, if you're Hank, right, if you're Walker, you get your shot when you get your shot. And even though I'm of the opinion that it may not be fair, you got to find a way to go in there and ball out when they put you in.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, for those of you that know, like now, obviously I cover UCF. I do Locked On UCF. And it was interesting. They made a bad decision in the portal with KJ Jefferson. It just didn't work out. There was a quarterback on their roster that could get the job done. He was buried. The redshirt freshman, Dylan Risk. And they put this kid in, and he has been balling. So at the end of the BYU game, it was, he went against the second team defense and the game was over. And I'm like, no, there are things that you can evaluate about a quarterback in garbage time still. It may not be the end all be all, but you could tell. And I thought he looked good. I thought he saw the field well. His crisp passes. If he had went out there and crapped the bed, they would have used that to crap on him. And then he gets his first full start versus Arizona and throws for 303 tutties. He did well last night on the road, all the way out in Tempe versus Arizona State. They lost a tight one, but they've at least solved some of their quarterback issue. Going into the season, I think they have a solid number one. KJ's out of here. He's done, just like Peyton. And you've got some other guys on the roster that will compete for the starting job, but find out what Walker has the same way Gus found out what he had in Dylan Risk. The records, and the reason I'm making this comparison is because the records were almost identical going into the previous games. Right. You're teetering on the brink. You might not make a bowl game. Like, your season's falling apart. You're losing games. Your quarterback is not doing the job. And Gus said, F it. Now, I wondered this. I wondered if the pressure that Gus felt of maybe not being the coach next year or getting fired, it inspired him to make some changes.
And I think that's an amazing question.
Right. Yeah.
That's what is, and that's because we've known Gus to be an incredibly stubborn coach and will stick with people probably longer than he should.
Boy, he went down the line here this season before they got to November.
I'm like, is that you, Gus? Go ahead.
Yeah, right. And so, no, I mean, it's a great point. And if you're all the talk where people are like, well, Hugh's going to get 3 years no matter what. I just can't help but wonder if that is not making him feel the urgency of the now. I felt it last year, and everyone kept giving him a pass for what we saw last year. And I said, no, I'm not giving him a pass. I'm not giving him a pass because some of those kids only had 1 year left, and the standard was so far below what we thought the floor should be that I was like, no, this isn't, again, we go back and forth over the whole rebuild, that this is why I have such an issue. That's such a triggering word for me. it implies that the talent that you have is so low that you can't win a base amount of games. And that's not the reason for what we're seeing here. Coaching is the reason for what we're seeing, because DJ Durkin is coaching his guys up.
Yeah.
They're giving you a shot to win.
Yeah.
Do I think they're a top 25 defense in the country?
And Auburn has been in just about all the games they've lost, even Georgia to a lesser extent. Like Auburn has been in those games and just have not found ways to win.
Your defense is giving you a chance to win every single game on the roster, on the schedule this year, even Georgia.
We will definitely see what happens. I want to. We didn't talk about this, Mike, but I do want to run this by you because it kind of popped up in a few stories. We're talking about the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does Auburn look towards the future in terms of quarterback? Does Auburn need to look towards the future in terms of offensive coordinator? Southern Miss,
23rd ranked defense total.
23rd ranked defense. Southern Miss fired their coach, and Derek Nix has been listed as among candidates to get that job. Should he land that job, Hugh Freeze will be looking for his third offensive coordinator in 3 years. What does that potentially do moving forward? And does this provide Auburn with an opportunity to kind of reboot or hit the reset button in terms of how they run their offense?
It all falls back to Hugh Freeze anyway. So whether or not they are, he turned play calling over, which my understanding was the primary play caller for Kentucky was Derek Nix. And he may not have been the primary play caller for Vanderbilt. That wouldn't shock me because of how different the approaches were. Hugh Freeze said, well, they weren't giving us anything in the run game. No, you bailed on it.
Right.
Like you did in the previous games before, because Kentucky came out hard against the run in the first quarter. You just never stopped running it, and eventually Jarquez broke loose. But if you're going to play these quarterbacks this way, I just did not understand it. All the excuses. Guys, Jarquez wasn't hurt. He wasn't in a boot all week. He was not hurt.
He wasn't winded.
He wasn't winded. He wasn't tired. They just didn't give him the ball. 12 carries is too few for that running back. Every time Auburn gets cute, it ends in disaster. That reverse pass thing that they were trying to run with Malcolm, at that time, I was like, why? Why do that there?
Maybe in hindsight is 2020, right, Mike? Because Hugh Freeze has been asked about who's going to be calling the plays, and we just didn't get the answer we wanted from Hugh. And it just seems like this is still a question that we have to ask. Are there multiple cooks in the kitchen when it comes to calling play? Like, I can understand game planning. I can understand during the week, everyone's in the room helping to build a plan. But I've been of the belief you only need one play caller consistently, right? Obviously, Hugh Freeze will have a hand in that. But to me, if you're not going to be the play caller and you're going to hand that over to one person. And what I'm wondering is that if Hugh Freeze has to hire a new OC, why don't you bring in an OC? Why don't you become kind of a CEO style coach and then just turn the offense over to someone and let them run it?
Right.
Thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, you got to make a good hire. And
Yes.
the better coaches, that's their superpower, is hiring good coordinators. It's our guy Dustin over at the Uptempo said, like, man, maybe we should be done with offensive head coaches and just hire a defensive guy. So he will hire that guy, and there will be no mistake about who's in charge over there, because you're a defensive guy. Again, I'm making the comparison because the seasons are so eerily similar in terms of how disappointing they were in terms of results and quarterback play. But like, it's funny watching Gus in 1 week. He fired his defensive coordinator. He relinquished play calling, and he changed his quarterback. That is a coach who senses the desperation of now. All in 1 week. This all happened on a Monday, like the busiest Monday in UCF history. And I keep waiting for that moment from Hugh Freeze where he will make the changes necessary rather than just dying on this hill. Bro, give up the play calling. You know, you don't have to fire your defensive coordinator. Fortunately, he's doing great.
Right.
Figure out make the hard decision at quarterback.
And that was my fear, Mike. If any coordinator left, it would be Durkin. But because of the job he's done. But again, I don't know if his history is still
Like, is this such a great job that he's no longer damaged goods? Right? Like,
right.
In terms of hiring, is some team going to come through and be like, you know what? Holy crap. Did he coach the hell out of that defense? These numbers defensively rival what Auburn did in 2019 with Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson.
That is a very
less than 20 points per game allowed, 19.2 yards per game allowed, Ceasear. Only 314 yards of total offensive allowed per game. That's 109 on the ground and 205 through the air.
Hiring a defensive-minded coach and him turning over to an offensive guy, an upcomer who can call plays in this day and age of college football.
Mm-hmm.
We've had that before. And we thought, Mike, that hiring offensive-minded coaches will fix some of because we had offensive issues even then. Auburn's problems offensively they span a decade long. We have not been consistently great offensively. We've been a QB away from being explosive, right? We had Jared Stidham, who was pretty good. I mean, even with Bo Nix, there was promise of our offense showing signs. We thought bringing in an offensive-minded coach that would at least cure some of these problems, and it just hasn't happened. I'm just curious as to, with Hugh Freeze going into year 3, you have an opportunity to kind of do some things differently. Obviously, your focus has been recruiting. And I'm appreciative of him really making recruiting fun and exciting again. But in order for it to be sustainable, you have to be able to show proof of concept. And what you're doing right now doesn't exactly do that. It even undermines what you're doing from a recruiting standpoint.
Well, everything they accomplished last year in recruiting is in danger this year.
Yes.
Right. You may not hold on to those kids long enough to see the fruits of their labor on the field. That's how badly this is going in year 2. So, yes, Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons, these guys are clearly talented.
Sure.
However, my sources are telling me that both of Auburn's top receiver recruits are on the chopping block in terms of guys who may transfer in the offseason or strongly considering other options. That's today's college football. Any program will take either one of those guys right now and they'll go start. That's your reality. And so, instead of getting Perry the time and getting him on the field, you wasted time with guys who are not the future of your program this year. Right. And Sam Jackson and Robert Lewis. And that's not me saying that those guys are bad receivers. Just not a future of your, or were they so much better than those guys that it made sense to focus on them over the guys that you need to keep for next year?
Yes, like it's one thing to focus on those guys and those guys be productive and they do well, they play well, they get a, you know what I mean? It's one thing for that to happen. It's another thing for us to get the production we got by focusing on guys who aren't the future, and now you're worried about losing your future receivers.
Yeah. So it's the way this thing has been managed. That's where I've had questions so far. I've had a bunch of questions about how they've chosen to manage this thing, and it just has not been good.
Yeah,
Ceasear, it's not been a good job. Now I keep going back to this segment I did with my good friend Zach Blackerby, where he asked me, what's the ceiling for this team? He thought the ceiling was 10 wins. I thought it was 7. And everyone lost their minds on me. And I also said, look, if you look at the year ones for Harsin and Freeze, outside of recruiting, Hugh Freeze's year 1 was worse. And if you believe that he's a better coach than Harsin, there's no world where he should have done worse. very least, it should have been the same, and then you grow in year 2.
Right.
But worse, yes, guys, it was worse. 6-7 record. Harsin did that. Heartbreaking Iron Bowl loss. Harsin did that. I would argue Hughes was worse because Harsin had TJ Finley, and they went to 4 OTs, and they went against Bryce Young. You had the game won versus and you let Jalen Milroe complete 4th and 31. So you lost that one, right? QB problems, check. What Harsin didn't do was he didn't lose his G5 game. They tried to against Georgia State.
Right. Right. Let's be fair. That was a doozy. That was a doozy.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
Moment as an Auburn Tiger.
But he did win, to your point. He did win, to your point.
Yeah. Finley, the Shed Jackson in the back of the end zone. But where was it better in year 1? If he was a better coach, where was it better?
Yeah.
It wasn't better. Recruiting was so great. Everybody gave him a pass, and I still had questions. Because all the guys he was bringing in, I was like, they're still going to be freshmen. If you have a development problem, those guys may not help you as much as you think they are going to help you. Now, they have helped statistically, but it has not translated to wins because I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. You're not the only one trying to get better in the offseason. Everybody else is doing it too. So if you're standing still, you might as well be moving backwards because everybody else is moving forwards. And somehow you let Vanderbilt move past you simply because of the decision at quarterback in the portal. So, I mean, that's all it took to move Vanderbilt past Auburn.
I'll be honest, Mike, there's a scenario where you don't even make a change in the offseason at QB and you still stay ahead of Vanderbilt. Like, you still have to coach games. And that's what worries me about our current head coach is there's no reason Auburn should have lost to certain teams they've lost to this season. It is inexplicable how Auburn lost to Oklahoma. It is inexplicable how Auburn lost some of these games. You still could have had a winning record even with your QB struggles.
Yes. Yeah, you could have.
This has been coaching malpractice.
Yeah, it's been coaching malpractice, right? Yeah, everyone's starting to come around to the idea. I just started saying it last year.
Sure.
Right? And, if people are being honest, they let the bug get to them. And the excitement around recruiting and the messaging behind, John Cohen went on the Paul Feinbaum show right before myself and Nathan King when Feinbaum was here on campus for the Oklahoma game. We were in the auditorium of the old athletic department, and Nathan and I were sitting off to the side waiting on our turn to talk to Paul on national TV. And Cohen went, and Paul pressed him about some of the comments that Hugh has made and the results on the field. And Cohen, he went into this long soliloquy about look at how many guys have left the program, and it didn't make any sense. Essentially pointing to player turnover as a reason for why Auburn is where it is. Now it's a rebuild. Normally I wouldn't have a problem with that messaging, except for that's not what you said when you hired him. That's not what he said when he got hired. He said, in today's day and age with the portal, you can do it quickly. And I do two things well, which is QB development and turning programs around quickly. None of those things have happened. And now you're trying to sell rebuild because it didn't play out the way you thought it would. And you're desperately trying to figure out why. Everyone's having to face reality now. Right. Because that's where we're at. The results on the field are causing everybody else to face a reality I saw coming at the end of last season. When Hugh Freeze got in front of the media after the bowl game and said, I was too busy recruiting to be involved in the game planning until the week of for the bowl, I was incredulous. That was probably his worst moment as Auburn's head coach. Honestly, it was his worst moment as Auburn's head coach.
It was clear his worst loss. So yes, that he topped that with that statement.
Yeah, that
was the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I tweeted it out, benignly, Lane Kiffin, all the other coaches were picking it up because they're like, "Please, this guy said that in the media." Yeah. Which underscores my message about how I thought the kids last year were done a disservice by the way that season was treated. Now you've given us 2 years of that. And year 2 has been markedly worse in terms of the results. Better defense, but he's not responsible for that. Not the game planning. Look, he gets credit for hiring Durkin. Like I will never take that away from a coach. When you make a good hire and your hire does good, you get the credit. Yeah. Right? Because if you make a bad hire and he does it, you still got to take the heat. So I will give him credit for that. But offensively, man, every time we've asked about play calling, it's been this guy calls some plays, I call some plays, and we're like, what? Who's running this thing, man? Who's running this thing? This is what I don't understand, and this is where I think some accountability has to be asked for going into next season, Ceasear. Like, if you're going to give this coach one more year, and let's be clear. I'm taking losing the ULM off the table. I don't even want to talk about that because I don't think that's likely. I don't think Auburn is there. But if for some reason they pull that off, had
some unlikely losses. But continue.
Yeah, I mean this would be. I think that would be, given the circumstances, that would be the worst loss in the last 50 years. All right. Right. Yeah. Under the circumstances, I think that would be the worst loss in the last 50 years. However, if you did lose that game, I just don't, despite whatever your messaging, whatever your reasoning is, I don't think, and this is the first, I'm changing my tune on this and the reason I'm changing my tune on this is because I never thought this would be a possibility. And now we realistically have to maybe put it on the table. If you lose this game and then you finish out losing to A&M and Alabama and you go 3-9, firing Hugh Freeze has to be on the table. Firing Hugh Freeze has to be. The last time an Auburn coach went 3-9, we fired the guy.
That is true.
We fired the guy, and again, you're talking about culture. You can't keep pointing to recruiting because in this particular case, I think the recruiting classes fall apart, and he does not have that to lean back on. You got away with the rebuild. Wait till we have you message in year 1. But now, like if Deuce defects for some reason, if those rumors are true, and you can't, and Cam transfers and guys start leaving the program, firing Hugh Freeze has to be on the table because you no longer have the future to point to with the talent that he brought in, plus the results.
You still have a lot of questions about if he can even turn things around.
Yeah, I understand people are going to come after me for that comment, but like I don't think that's a hot take. I think 3-9 means that a lot of the good that you did in year 1 in recruiting probably falls apart. So, and my caveat is that he's able to hold all the guys that he recruited from 2024 here and also finish top 5 in recruiting. Because, like I said, even at 3-9, I think maybe if you hold everything together, you let him see year 3 through. But if he can't hold it together and you finish 3-9, like, yeah, it's seriously time to start talking about whether the firing is justified.
We will definitely see. We will definitely cover this game in more detail with the midweek report. You definitely want to tune in for that later this week. Also, a lot of questions will be answered in terms of who starts this upcoming Saturday and what the future holds for Auburn's offense. We will definitely be on top of that. Guys, we're going to get to the break. We see some of you guys super chats and comments. We will definitely read those after the break. And then we're going to get into talking about Auburn basketball. This is the weekend tailgate.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
You guys know the deal. Sign up as a member. $5.99 a month will get you there. We appreciate our patrons for supporting the channel. Basketball season is here, and we have a lot of basketball games to attend. And gas prices are not $5.99 a gallon, thank God. But you can help us out there by signing up as a patron. Ike is still doing film reviews for you guys. I know how depressing the film reviews are, but the work still has to be done. Help him continue to do that by signing up as a patron. Definitely want to thank our title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron. Again, visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off your fire pits and Kamado grills. This segment of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leader in men's lifestyle and grooming. Every man knows the unbeatable feeling of a fresh barbershop shave. Now, what if I told you that you no longer have to wait weeks or even months between appointments to experience it? Introducing Manscaped's newest innovation, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver, the game-changing tool that brings the luxury of a professional shave right into your home. Whether you're after that daily silky smooth finish or prefer to maintain a rugged 5 o'clock shadow, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver is your go-to for precision style every time. Head over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. That's manscaped.com. Use code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Also, after you get that silky smooth shave, hit the club and go on the hunt with Joy Mode. No, don't do
club.
That. Yeah, baby. No, not the club. After the club. Is that after the club? Is that still a thing? You guys do this after the club, right?
I don't know. I've been out of the game.
All right. Well, let's call out the obvious. Everyone wants to head into the bedroom with the confidence, feeling like the best version of themselves. But the problem is sometimes intrusive thoughts get in the way. Who's Auburn going to start at quarterback? What happened on the plane? All these questions can sometimes hinder our performance, Ceasear. But our friends at Joy Mode have you covered. Look, imagine a supplement like your favorite greens packet that you can put in 6 to 8 ounces of water 45 minutes before you do the business. And then, bam, the magic happens. Visit tryjoymode.com and use code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. That's tryjoymode.com and use code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Joy Mode is bringing you the joy this holiday season.
All right, let's get back into it, and let's get to some of you guys' comments. Starting first with Super Chat here. TJ Lou says Auburn's defense held Vandy to 227 yards of total offense compared to South Carolina's 274 and lost by 10. South Carolina blew Vandy out. Wow, bro.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's frustrating that we're here and this is the result. But like when you're looking around the conference and you're seeing other teams do better than what Auburn is doing, credit to Shane Beamer for really pulling their season out. They played some close games. They almost went into Tuscaloosa and got a win. They lost by 2 points there, and they were one Malachi. No, not Malachi. Sorry, what's that guy's name? Crash out guy on Bama's defense. Chat, help me out.
Moore, Malachi Moore.
Is that
Malachi Moore? Was it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe. Anyway, like he almost kneeled it in the end zone in that game. They were covered an onside kick.
There's a few Bama trolls in here. They'll tell us.
Yeah, Malachi Moore. Right? Like, just look, South Carolina has held it together, and this is what I expected of Auburn this year. They've had struggles on offense at times, but their defense has played extremely well. And they found enough offense in most of these games to get bowl eligible, and Auburn is not. So, yeah, I understand. I understand this sentiment, TJ.
And Fire Freeze, obviously, he lets us know what he's thinking. Gifted 5 War Report memberships. Appreciate that.
He didn't just change his name after my rant there at the end of the last segment. He's been on this train for a while.
Been on this train. John just became a member. Welcome, good sir. Anthony Long says, how different would this season have been if we would have just stuck with Hank?
That's interesting. I don't know, because if it's a coaching issue, then is it better really, or do they just mess it up, but with Hank at QB, and then everybody blames Hank? I don't have to answer this question, Anthony. Right? Like, I think that Auburn's issue is not players more so than it is coaching and decisions made administratively. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Anthony. Skip 07 UA, no bowl this year. Wow. Wonder how recruits feel.
A few weeks ago, the messaging was still holding, because I think they expected.
I think it's still holding now. I just think people are speculating about Deuce.
Yeah, I mean, he's the key to a lot of this, dude. If he defects, you might see other defections. These guys stick together, man, and they recruit each other. And so it's not going to be just him. But if you're Deuce, you're probably hitting Cam and Perry up and saying, what are you guys doing? Because you were supposed to be the guys that I'm throwing to in a year or two. They're not going to be here, then you've got questions about who's going to be here to throw the ball to.
Jonathan Hubbard says no one but Peyton will hold up against Texas A&M and Bama's defenses.
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily disagree with this sentiment. Now, I will say, Jonathan, you don't know what you have in Walker White. You might have a gamer. You might have a guy that when you put him under the lights, he just goes out there and lights it up. Is it time to figure that out, though? Right? Like, that's where I'm at. Is it time to figure that out?
And again, you don't lose this kid's red shirt by seeing what he has at this point.
Right.
So, James Barnett says if Nix leaves, will one of the QBs follow him?
He's a great recruiter. Derek Nix is a phenomenal recruiter. So if you lose him, I think there's going to be some impact on recruiting. I don't know that it's one of the QBs, but
what happens with Henderson?
Correct. Yeah, he's breaking Alabama high school records right now. It feels like every week. And I don't know. I don't have the question to that. I think the key to me to staying on the Freeze train for year 3 is hold enough of the guys from 2024 and finish top 5 in recruiting this year, and I'll stomach one more year of this.
And I to clarify, I don't know anything with Henderson. I just threw out a name, but I'm saying he's a big part of this 2025 class that Auburn is putting together. If he leaves, what impact does that have?
Right.
Robert with the $5 super chat says to see Austin Simmons come in, pick Georgia apart, and lead his team down the field for a touchdown was beautiful to watch. Did AU ever look at him? I'm not sure.
The Ole Miss quarterback?
Yeah, when their QB went out, he led a drive against Georgia.
Okay, yeah. I was impressed. In my head, I was thinking, was that Spencer Sanders? But Austin Simmons. Look, if you don't have, we say this all the time on the show, if you don't have 2 QBs that can get the job done, you're playing with fire. I would argue that Missouri doesn't have 2 QBs that can get the job done. Because when Cook got hurt, they gave him the strongest painkillers available to come back and win that game. If he stays on the bench, Auburn beats Missouri.
Pine did look better against Oklahoma yesterday.
And then when Brady Cook was actually out, they got their asses kicked.
Sure. That's what I'm saying, but Pine looked better yesterday. It was Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a good defense.
Yes, sir.
So maybe they're figuring things out. But yes, he was god awful when he played us and when he played Bama. Jonathan Hubbard comes back and says, I think Hugh is a little stubborn. Usually offensive head coaches are with an ego. We might be going through a coaching search next season.
This is why I brought up the Gus thing and the desperation that you have to feel, I think, when your ego is involved. Because the Fire Gus Malzahn website, it was getting a ton of hits. And UCF fans were fed up. And they didn't win Saturday. It's always been close, but no cigar. So he hasn't really changed the minds of a lot of those people. Arizona's win last week, I mean, they're not a very good defense or whatever, but these are close games. You just got to your quarterback really, really late in the season. They have an opportunistic defense. I think that Gus possibly survives this because showing the flexibility to change late in the season and take a different approach. Play calling he's turned over play calling to his offensive coordinator, Tim Harris Jr., and it's looked fantastic. The defensive coordinator, Addison, is doing well in Ted Roof's absence. I don't know how Ted Roof keeps getting hired. I don't know how that guy keeps getting jobs, man. Like, I don't get it, but whatever. But the point is that there was a lot of pivot and a lot of admission, I think, by the head coach that there was coaching and system issues. That's it. He may. I mean, it wasn't just let me change my quarterback. It was like let me change the play calling. Let me get rid of this defensive coordinator because of what BYU just did to us. We're better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're Hugh Freeze, it's only your side of the ball you have to deal with because DJ Durkin is taking care of his part. So you have markedly less to do in that regard.
Daniel Denny had an interesting comment here. He says, whoever's calling plays, the scheme is working because players are getting open. It's just Peyton is not getting them the ball. So my question to this is, why not stick with somebody else? Why not go with someone else, Mike?
Yeah, and if that guy's not ready, that still falls back on coaching as well too.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go. Like there's no scenario because it's not so much. It's how this coaching staff is managing games. Because when you look at the stats, Auburn's they're moving the ball in most of these games. It's very few games we've seen this season where Auburn's offense has looked anemic. Just offensively and just can't move the ball at all. We're baffled at the fact that this team is moving the ball, but there's a lot of turnovers. You're moving the ball, but there's not a lot of points on the board. They're not managing the game well. And it starts with how they're managing the QB position in a lot of aspects. So to me, if you follow different logics of reasoning, it all ends back in the same place, how this head coach is handling and managing the offense.
Right.
Stephen Neely says, Auburn has 2 jobs this portal season. Don't be cheap and go get the best QB available and empty the rest of the bag on retaining current roster. Thoughts on that, Mike?
Don't be cheap. Like, I think that there was money for a quarterback. They just didn't want to spend it on a quarterback because they didn't think that was the most dire area of need. And clearly they were wrong. So, that attitude will not, if he's going to be your coach in year 3, just go whatever dollars he needs to go get his guy, you have to give it to him. But you can't hamstring him for another year saying we're not giving you any more money for a quarterback. Like, if you're not going to give him what he needs, fire him and get somebody else in here who you will give what they need. Right. But if he's going to be the coach, if he needs $1 million for a quarterback,
clearly
give him $1 million for a quarterback, right?
Clearly.
I think we don't know. Obviously, rumors run rampant, but Janai got a sizable NIL deal to return for another year. Right. And it was rumored to be in the high 6 figures, if not 7s, for him to return for another season. We saw that pay off last night when Auburn took on Houston. And I mean, look, Janai was a forced down low and they were racking up fouls trying to, while Auburn was feeding him the ball. So that's money well spent. You need to spend that money more wisely, I think, on the football side this offseason.
Mike, we talked about football. Let's talk basketball. Auburn went on the road. Even though it was a neutral site game, it was definitely home friendly to Houston. Auburn went on the road in an amazing game. Pulled out the victory 74-69 against the Houston Cougars. Auburn is currently the number 1 team in KenPom rankings. That was an amazing game last night.
It was
an amazing game last night. Now, it wasn't without its fair share of controversy. I think a day or so before the game, there was reports of Auburn's plane returning back to Auburn after an issue on the flight. And then it was announced yesterday that 2 players would not be dressed out for the game, were suspended for that game. Didn't seem to matter, right? Auburn played 9 guys, had a 9-man rotation, and took care of business. Obviously highlighted by Janai Broome and the true freshman Tahad Pettiford. Amazing game. Your thoughts on what you saw, man?
Look, Todd is a dude, right? And when you look at the stats from last night, it was pretty remarkable what Auburn was able to do statistically versus Houston. It was phenomenal what they were able to do versus Houston. We have access to some of the advanced analytics from the game, obviously. But look, man, Auburn last night versus Houston, they were the visitors. 36 points in the paint, 39 points from the bench. And what looked to be a low-scoring affair early, that's where, to me, the game was won. Yeah. It was. You had 60 possessions, and they shot, I think, 57% from the field. 52% from the field 52. For the game. Yeah, 52% from the field.
Houston shot 41%. Amazing.
Right. Okay, so the dichotomy between the halves is something that we talked about on the post game last night. In the first half, Auburn shot 47.8% from the field. In the second half, they improved to 57.1%. Houston shot 40% flat from the field in the first half, and they only improved to 42% in the second half. Both teams took the same amount of shots. Auburn went 16 for 28. Houston went 12 for 28 in the second half. In the first half, Houston took 7 more shots than Auburn did. They took 30 shots. Auburn took 23 shots. So, Auburn shot almost 8% better than Houston in the first half. They just took fewer shots. That was it. This was a great performance against a really, really good team. And I think that, this may be a turning point for Bruce Pearl's seasons, where they played tough against the Dukes. When you remember they playing Duke in the one invitational a couple years ago, and it was a tough game, but you lost. And this game started to have that feeling late, but then they just kept making shots. Auburn loses that game with Aiden Holloway yesterday. Now I know.
Who's that?
Right, exactly. Pettiford is a shot maker, man. My guy Nate Goetz over on Twitter, he was giving me crap about Pettiford not hitting a shot versus Vermont. And I'm like, okay, but they didn't need him to hit a shot versus Vermont. Because Miles Kelly was hitting from Opelika. Last night, they needed Pettiford to hit shots, and he was draining them.
And to me, that's the thing. That's what was so impressive about this game, Mike, is that he was playing as though it was March. He's playing the way you would expect a freshman to start playing once he gets a feel for the game. This is just game 2 against Houston on the road, and he's looking like a veteran. He's playing like one of the best players on the team.
Yeah,
that's what's so impressive about this. He didn't have to work his way into learning how to play this way. He's making a case to be your starting point guard now.
Yeah, and that's what you expect from 5 stars in college basketball, from true 5 stars. That's why people were like, hey, they were disappointed with Aiden. I think Tahad he's the highest rated recruit in Auburn history. I think that guy that went to Bama with the
there's a lot of kids go to Bama, but what does Aiden got to do with Auburn? Like, I'm lost. Auburn recruited a kid named Aiden or something?
They did.
Really?
Yeah, they did. He was massively
Let me look that up.
Underwhelming. I think he left here to be the backup at another team.
Aiden.
So Tahad is going to be hard to keep off, I think, off the court. Todd is going to be really hard to keep off the court here in the coming weeks, because if he's going to make shots like that, that's the dude you put in the game down the stretch. Some other interesting factoids from this game. Obviously, Auburn, I think, lost the offensive rebounding. They lost offensive rebounding by 4 rebounds, but both teams were tied in total rebounds at 33 apiece.
That is correct.
Houston also scored more points off turnovers. They scored 16 off turnovers. Auburn only scored 10 off turnovers last night. Free throw shooting continues to be an issue for me with this team. Now, they raised that percentage, late in the game last night, which is where you need to hit those free throws. But like for a large percentage of this game, they were in the 50% range for free throw shooting. So that's going to come back to bite them in close games if they can't clean that up. But look, you had 9 second chance points. I mean, there were a lot of statistical categories in this game that they lost to Houston, yet they still won the game because they chose their shots better and the playmakers made plays. Auburn had more assists than Houston did, 14-7. Looks like the game was tied 6 times. There were 13 lead changes, and Auburn only led for 11 minutes and 21 seconds in this game. Houston led for 24 minutes and 36 seconds in this game. So it was a great win on the road where, like, again, they led more than twice as long as you did. And late, they were making shots. So they were trading. A lot of those lead changes came late in the first quarter where they were trading buckets back and forth. And your Auburn, you didn't fold. You just kept making shots, and eventually they couldn't make a play, and you won. Right? Auburn basketball may save the Auburn fan base this year.
And I think what I enjoyed most about this is Auburn had key guys in foul trouble, Mike. Miles Kelly wasn't able to get into a rhythm because Miles Kelly was in foul trouble. He was playing with 4 fouls throughout the stretch of the second half, right? You even had Chad Baker-Mazara, who was in foul trouble. So guys who you were depending on to make some of those key shots, they were not on the floor at key moments of the game or able to make certain plays. Now, Chad made a huge 3 down the stretch of the game, towards the end of the game. That was really crucial for Auburn. But when you have situations like that, who steps up? And it just seems to me, you saw with Vermont, Miles Kelly went off. This game, it was Tahai Pettiford.
Yeah.
The beauty of it is that it appears to me, we know there's 3 guys who we know can go get buckets from Auburn at a minimum. But it just seems to me is that Auburn is now in a situation now where it needs someone to make a play. There's someone on this roster who can go do that. So to me, that was something that seemed to be missing in years prior, where if Broom is going to give you what he gives you, but he may need help. And it seems like when we get into tight clutch moments, we didn't have that second option, third option to step up and make plays. It seems as though just 2 games in, but after beating Houston, who's a good defensive team, probably the best defensive team Auburn's going to play all season, it looks like Auburn has additional options to get buckets.
Yeah, I think we haven't had a chance to really address this, you and I, but I think that this staff did a really, really good job given the distraction that they had before this one.
Yes.
It can't be understated. So let's call out the elephant in the room. We all know by now that Auburn had to turn their plane around. It looked like they got just past Montgomery, had to turn around, get back in the air, and then head back to Houston later that night. I was at the women's game while they were 90-piecing Virginia Lynchburg, and my phone started blowing up. And I looked at my phone, and people were like, well, what happened? And I was like, I don't know what happened. What happened, guys? You tell me what happened. There was an altercation on the plane. It looks like Ja'Kai Howard and Turtle were the 2 guys involved in that. There has since been videos coming out showing Ja'Kai's body language versus Vermont when Miles Kelly was dropping threes. I've been told that there have been random crash outs over silly things from Ja'Kai. And if you're Bruce Pearl, you cannot allow your team chemistry to be shaken by one player. There was no part of me that thought that they needed Ja'Kai Howard to win that game.
Right.
right? Like, and I'm talking about before the game. So this guy I follow posted a video, and he said he saw it, and when he looked to check who the player was and where they came from, Ja'Kai apparently came from a program called Overtime Elite, and this program is like known for producing problem players. Is what they're saying, right? He's like, as soon as I saw Overtime Elite, I knew it was that guy, right? Because they weren't reporting early who crashed out on the plane. There were rumors that Chad Baker Mazzaro was involved. It seems he was not involved in this.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, right. Like, not in. If he was, it was in a try to break it up kind of way, right? Corey Weber saying Overtime Elite is AAU essentially, and like, again, just a lot of just troubled kids coming out of there, right? Like, and so I don't, you just can't, like, you've got something special cooking here, and we've seen leadership by young guys. One of the things that I'm impressed with Tahad Pettiford is he looks like he handles himself well. I was sitting next to Brian Matthews from auburnsports.com during one of the exhibition games, Ceasear, and we were talking about Tahad, and we're like, Tahad, like, Aiden never looked comfortable on the court. Tahad just looked comfortable. He wasn't doing anything special, but you could see the differences between the two players when he was on the court running point. And
Mike, last night was a pressure cooker, man. Most kids fold, and he had to hit 2 important free throws at the end of the game.
Yeah, man.
And he looked like he's been here before.
Yeah, you've got leaders, and make their job a little bit easier, and you have to set the tone, I think, early, and just say, look, man, either your behavior is going to improve or you got to go play someplace else. I can't help you. I think they're deep enough, though, this year that this is a decision. This should be an easy decision. Now, to what extent that, like, Ja'Kai's getting a lot of the focus on the misbehavior, like, but I'm not sure to what extent. I don't know if Turtle was just the guy on the other end of his wrath, or whether there's a behavior issue there. Yeah. So I'll refrain from commenting on him, but clearly there's enough out there where and Corey, I'll say this because Corey's saying it now, but like, Howard almost left the team when he didn't win the dunk contest. It was, what we were told was, it was a complete crash out over not winning the dunk contest, like an absolute crash out, and clean out my locker, text the coaches type crash out. I'm done. And so there may be something else going on there. If that young man needs help, get him help. Right. If he's got emotional issues, he's got distress that he's dealing with, get him the help that he needs, and help him understand that, like, accountability, you're not going to go play at the next level where they're going to put up with this.
Right. They're not going to give you millions of dollars knowing that you are a liability.
There are few players talented enough to survive those sorts of antics, right? And you think back to, like, Ja Morant waving guns around on Instagram, and look, man, he obviously is supremely talented, but he is in a small percentage of players that could survive something like that. And even he got suspended, didn't he not? Yeah, he got suspended.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I think he ruined the opportunity to truly max out on his contract, because I think part of his incentive for his contract was he needed to make first team. He needed to make the All NBA team, and because he was suspended, he was disqualified from making that team, which hurt his pockets.
Right.
So there is still, with your talent, there is still, you're limiting yourself from certain opportunities to maximize your talent and maximize your opportunity. Even though he's getting a second chance, Mike, he's missing out he left a lot of money on the table doing something really trivial and stupid.
Correct. Yeah, it just didn't make any sense, right? Like, and so at the end of the day, you're looking at it and you're thinking, all right, well, you got something special cooking. Auburn has one of the best non-conference slates we've ever seen them have. This is going to be so much fun to watch. Yeah, the focus should be on the basketball and not the behavior of a couple of troublemakers. And now I'll die on that hill, man. Like, the focus should be on the basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you said what you said about making sure this kid, because it sounds like this kid needs to get some help.
He needs to get some help, man.
He needs to get some help. I hope it's not. I hope it doesn't become a situation where the coaching staff is forced to have to move on from him. I'm hoping, because this is a talented kid, but at the same time, there are a lot of men who look back and credit this coaching staff with helping them become the men they need to be. And I want Ja'Kai Howard to be the latest line of kids who can look back and thank this coaching staff for helping them become the men they need to be for their families, for their communities, and so on and so forth. Right. So I hope this is something that works out, has a happy ending, and that Ja'Kai begins to gain control of that. But at the same time, I do understand how that can begin to hurt a locker room if you can't corral that situation. So I'm hoping for the best in that situation.
Yeah, me too.
Mike, anything else about the game? I mean, obviously,
no, it was fun.
This was an exciting Saturday for a lot of Auburn fans. And again, I think Auburn basketball it was the medicine a lot of Auburn fans needed. And I'm excited to see what happens. Auburn's got some big games coming up, Mike.
They do.
They have an opportunity to truly make a statement that they're here to make a run in the tournament. So we'll see. Anything else, man?
That's it, man. Like, look, it's going to be – we didn't have football this weekend, so basketball delivered for us. I was happy to see that they did. And then this week, I'll be at the press conference tomorrow to ask Hugh Freeze more questions. If you guys got questions, tweet at me, at Mike Gittens on Twitter. Let me know what you want to hear from Hugh Freeze this week headed into ULM.
Tell the people how they can get a green name and all that good stuff, sir.
You guys know the deal. Hit that join button. $5.99 a month will get you there. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. We appreciate all our patrons that share the War Report with everyone who does not have a green name in the chat. Appreciate you guys for helping us grow our community. Also want to shout out show sponsor Vintage 2298 Restaurant and Butcher Shop. Vintage 2298, it's got some of the best eats in town. So if you're looking for a fine dining experience, Vintage 2298 has you covered. Visit them at 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. Also want to thank brand new show sponsor Los Amigos Mexican Restaurant. They're at USA Town Center at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200, Opelika, Alabama. Now, look, I've been eating a lot of Mexican food lately, Ceasear. It's disturbing. But when I do, I go to Los Amigos because the burrito there is incredible. So please go visit them. Los Amigos Restaurant, again, 1220 Fox Run Ave in Opelika, Alabama. They've got some of the best eats. And it's a great place to go watch the game. They've got TVs. They serve the community. You see a lot of police, law enforcement officers in there, local politicians. It's a family restaurant that's serving the community. We appreciate the work that they're doing.
And before you get out of here, guys, help us out, man. It helps us out in the algorithm when you do this. Share this video with those so they can definitely check out our content. Smash the like button before you get out of here. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. Help build up those who are following us. You can even help us by going out to social media on X, IG, following us at The War Report. You can even check us out on TikTok at TW Report. That's it for now, guys. We will definitely be back. A lot of news that's going to break this week as football gets back into the swing of things. We will be there to cover it all. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.